That's been one of the hardest things is that part. Just trying to stay organized, man. I'm trying to figure out how people are doing this with, 20, 30 units, man. Because I'm like, I mean, just five and trying to stay organized has been like almost a full time job, man.
Right?
So,
Absolutely.
because how many do you have now?
I just sold a bunch of. I have four rentals right now.
Okay.
So, and then I have notes, and then I'm part of a syndication for self storage. But most of my, like, as far as investments now go, are all in like private money notes and stuff like
That's
that.
where it's at.
To
That's
your
where it's at.
point, like rentals, I just got tired of. Sorry, Mark, are we live already, Mark?
Yeah, you're live, man. You're
We're just
telling
rolling,
everyone.
baby. All
Yeah, just
right.
go for it.
Um,
Keep going, man.
I don't know. I just like the private money aspect. I just think it's a little bit
Yeah.
it, I'm a bigger fan, and it's in line with lending, right? So my mortgage company is now my primary business that I'm medically retired. So
Okay.
all of those things fall in. I can use my processor for both. It's just, it's like, I guess you could say it's more naturally like it could be considered vertically integrated.
Okay.
But yeah, I agree with you, and I think I think it's one of those things. And I think you've been in an A mastermind or possibly attended one. That I love masterminds, but the one problem is, and I talk about this with a buddy here, is you get there and you hear people doing, oh, I'm doing 100 houses a year, or I want 100 rentals, and then you start to see what 100 rentals look like, and you're like, do I really want 100 rentals,
Yeah.
or do I?
Yeah.
And that's why I think, like, for all of us, if it's like, oh, I want X amount of money each month, or whatever the goal is, and then back it into that.
Yeah.
Exactly. Great point. So yeah, we are live right now. If anyone wants to follow, you got Tyler's the First Responder Financial Freedom page in the comments. We got Tony's Fireman Flips Instagram. So go check everyone out. We got Joe V here stopping by. So Tyler, that's your buddy. He's the ex
The
police
cop,
officer. Yeah.
yes,
So
sir.
we can never get them on camera though. None of those guys want to come on. But I do need to maybe connect you with this guy, Pat Wilson. He is a bailiff now. He's an ex-detective in California, but I think he's looking
Oh,
at,
cool.
yeah, he possibly wants to do notes. That's why. So he maybe can
Okay.
pick your brain or, but that's some, hey, aloha.
My
Super
grandfather
cool.
was a judge, and I loved his bailiff, dude. He would walk us around the back of the courthouse all the time. Big dude.
Cool. Yeah, so this is kind of Tony's topic that he wanted to maybe continue on or dig deeper into, as far as I guess maybe I look at it as kind of, us being first responders, just kind of that golden handcuffs in a sense, right? We have a great pension a lot of times, great benefits. So a lot of times it's hard to get people in our field to want to do something different or invest differently. So maybe Tony, you can dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty passionate about that just because I kind of see the gurus are pretty heavy about the whole quit your job and go all in on real estate, and I think there's obviously multiple ways to skin a cat, but I'm definitely on the side of using using that W-2 as a superpower and being able to leverage the different ways of getting loans, and then actually how I'm kind of doing things, and obviously not knowing if that's the right way or the wrong way. It's I'm not planning on using any of my investment funding for my personal use at the moment, so everything is getting reinvested at the moment, and the only way I can do that is by having a W-2 that I can fall back on, and using that as, hey, we were already living off this money. How about we actually, save everything and reinvest it? That way, when we get to the point, because technically, I've got 13 more years to go. I'll be 52 when I retire, and I know I'm gonna work to till I die. I'm gonna be just that person that I'm going to work. So why not have something like the real estate versus trying to, where most of our guys do, is just go and basically they end up working harder at another job than they did at the fire department. So they retire, and then now you see them and they're working harder than they did when they were at the firehouse, because they say they want to retire, but technically, most of those guys, those A-type guys, they don't want to just sit around and retire, so they end up getting another job. So trying to see the forefront of that, knowing that, hey, if I could have something like this real estate to fall back on, I can go right into basically another whole career, and being able to then leverage that and being able to just go all in on that. So I'm a big proponent of using that W-2 as a superpower. I just think there are so many attributes that I think that's more of a selling point. Most of the people who are saying that, to me, have some kind of course or something they're trying to sell you to then get you to kind of go all in on that real estate. But I think I see it more now where people are saying don't quit. Like I felt like bigger pockets were heavy on that, like quit your job, go all in on real estate. And I've seen them backtrack pretty heavy to where they're like, don't quit, use that W-2 as that superpower, use it as a good selling point to be able to go get specific loans, and then, using that that real estate as almost supplement with the way everything's going.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have seen kind of bigger pockets change their tune slightly. So and yeah, so Big Andy's here. So that's the guy I messaged. So Tony, maybe quickly just I forgot where you are a first responder and where you investing.
Okay, Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a firefighter paramedic, Cincinnati, Ohio, and most of our investments are kind of the suburban of Cincinnati. So in that specific area, 35, 45 minutes from Cincinnati. I've got one currently in Cincinnati, and the rest are kind of on the outskirts.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Andy, I forget if you're exactly in Cincinnati, but Tony would probably be a good guy to connect with. So, hey, what's up, Frank? So I know Tyler, for you, I know you've had an injury in your career, right? Is that kind of also maybe change? Were you always doing the real estate lending private money side before you got hurt, or did it kind of
Yeah.
okay? So yeah, let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I've done it. It was so I got hired in 2010, and I wasn't planning on doing it anymore. And then after my first year of probation, on probation, we all keep our mouth shut, don't really say anything unless spoken to, and do the deal. But then afterwards, guys asked me what I did prior, and I said, "Oh, I was a lender in real estate," and that just spawned a lot of conversations, and it ended up allowing me to restart my business and helping a ton of guys on my department and other departments. And kind of to Tony's point, like the whole W-2 thing is definitely a superpower. And I'm learning this now post injury, right? Like I was telling somebody the other day, for all three of us, usually if you need to make some extra cash and outside of real estate, dude, sign up for overtime, get some extra shifts, and you're good to go. When you are no longer able to do that, stuff starts to get real, right? You figure out how well situated you are. And so I tell a lot of the guys, same thing. A lot of us love doing the fireman job. I mean, it's something that everybody has a great time doing. And I say, hey, you look at it this way. If you want to buy a rental and you're afraid, and the mortgage payment, let's say, is less than $500 a month, or let's say it's $500 a month or 1,000, whatever number we want to use, but you can work X amount of overtime shifts to cover that. Let's say if it's not rented, how long could you work without worrying about that? Most guys could say, I could do that easy 6 months to a year, 2 extra shifts a month. Okay. Do you think it would be unlikely that you bought a rental and it was left unrented for a year? Yes, that's highly unlikely. Okay, then what are you waiting for?
Okay.
And that you don't do it when your W-2 job is gone. You don't have that. And I know that can be considered a safety net and you're going to be comfortable and not do it. I agree with you guys. I think that's not correct. And on the lending side, a W-2 wage earner is much more attractive for any conventional loan than any self-employed person will ever be. Most of the time, if you're self-employed, you're writing off all of your money to save on taxes. And so when you go and show your income, it's going to be a lot lower. For us W-2 people, that's not the case. So I mean, I don't know. I think there's a ton of positives, and I agree with you that the whole burn the ships thing was very in vogue, and I think it's starting to come back to more of, hey, maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we can, like I said, I like creating those scenarios without having to quit your job. Put a little pressure on yourself, put a little financial pressure on yourself, but you have the safety net of the W-2 job.
Yeah, so Pat just stopped in. He was having trouble figuring out how to message, but he's the one I said I'll get you his information.
Okay.
But Pat's a super good guy. He was in Vegas for the one rental at a time event, year 1 and year 2, and he's the one I kind of talk about quite a bit. Year 1, he was definitely a little bit more like a wallflower, observing, kind of seeing what was going on, and then year 2, he's like the life of the party. So Yeah, so he's
Nice.
doing some cool stuff. So he's just trying to figure out where he wants to put his money. If rentals make the most sense, but or even private lending he's looking at. So definitely connected with you. But yeah, I
Thank you.
totally agree. I mean, I think not everyone is an entrepreneur too, right? So a lot of people, it is that W-2, and for a lot of people of our, I mean, we're different ages, but we probably came up where, go to school, get a job, work, and that was kind of the traditional path of retiring at a certain age, right? And I think that's kind of why a lot of us may not be entrepreneurs, and not everyone has that in them, right? They like that stability of a W-2, being able to work overtime. So like you're saying, all great points on where you can leverage that, right? Even to the lenders. So for majority of the people, I definitely think the W-2 path, is the way to go, right? I mean, it gives you more options too. So as far as, are you guys maybe I mean, I know Tyler, you're out injured and everything, but Tony, I know you said you had 13 years until your retirement age. Is there any chance you think you might try to get out early, or it's just are you leaving everything on the table? You think?
Yeah, I have no intentions on retiring early. For the simple fact, I feel like I'm doing everything I would be able to do if I was retired. I don't feel like I'll be doing anything different as far as, because now I've totally realized that I don't want this big, large real estate portfolio. For me, realistically, 2 to 3 units um, a year is kind of my goal, and eventually get to where I've seen the long term play of the private money lending. That's my whole kind of overall goal. I did a hard money lending lender. I used a hard money lender for my last project, and just seeing what I paid them to just write a check was like, holy crap! Like this aha moment. So for me, that's kind of the long term play, is to 2 to 3 units. It gives me enough time to where I've got kind of this, what I call addictive personality, where I kind of go all in on things. And there was a moment where with real estate, I was like literally head over heels about it, and I'm still am, but I was like really where every waking hour was spent on trying to learn real estate. But what that does for me is everything else takes a back seat, because it's just how my personality is. So I was seeing where, relationships were starting to be strained. I was missing, my some of my kids' events strictly because I was just all in on real estate. And what I started to realize is I can do both and have that balance. And the balance for me was knowing that 2 to 3 units gives me enough time to where if I put the systems in play, I can get enough deals coming in to where, hey, this is a good deal. This is not a good deal. Let me go all in on this. Let me pass up on this. So I have no intentions on return early, strictly because I don't feel like I would be doing anything more than I'm actually able to do now with the time frame that we have in the free time.
I would argue it's funny. So what I've learned so far is you might do less when you know you have all this free time. That's the hardest part. Is like, dude, I got every day, all day. Like I don't have a set schedule. And I told my daughter the other day, I'm not as disciplined as I thought I was. I had all this stuff to do, which forced me to be disciplined. And so, yeah, that's a good point.
You didn't make it to Vegas though.
I didn't because I prioritized softball, then we lost, and I was pouting in my house all day long.
Oh, geez. All right. Well, both of you, hopefully, you guys will be there next year. It was a great event. So, but
It looked fun.
it was amazing. Like I talked about it on some recaps, and I think year one was amazing. I think the event, a lot of the original community and the OGs. So year two, honestly, I told a lot of people I wasn't as excited to go. I was kind of I've already went to year one. It's at the same venue, whatnot, and so I wasn't that excited being there. But then after the event, I'm like, oh, this is just amazing. It's more about just the community growing, and it's more like a family feeling, and just everyone is like, no one's there judging. And like the guy Pat we mentioned, he doesn't have, I mean, he has like he doesn't have, he has a primary, but he doesn't have any rentals or anything. But he's there trying to figure out what's the best way for him to use his money, right? So no one's there like looking at him like, oh, what are you doing at a real estate type of thing when everyone's trying to get rentals? So yeah, it was a great event. For me though, I think the one thing that I struggle with is I think I'm trying to retire early more so also because I feel like I'm limiting my opportunities being in Hawaii. Like I feel like I could be doing so much more, if I could spend longer portions of time in the mainland, right? Maybe I'll probably still be snowbirding or whatnot living here, but being able to spend longer periods at a time in the mainland, I think I feel I'd be doing a lot more in real estate or have more opportunities come my way. So that's kind of where I'm on the fence a little bit. Oh, but Brett's here. Brett's also a firefighter in Milwaukee, I believe. So, what's up, Brett? Thanks for stopping by. Um, Tyler, I don't know if you're able to touch on it a little bit. I know Mike had a health issue, right? So I think a lot of us in the first responder field, it's always same thing, right? It's always uh, could be the next call. We're always worried. Like even my shoulders, but I got to go get MRI on Thursday. But it's those type of things too that also starts making us think like, what if we don't finish our career, right? Or what if we don't get to our pension, our full pension? So is that something maybe you see the younger guys need help realizing?
That we don't make it, yeah, for sure. And like the cool part is now I have guys reaching out to me that are kind of in a similar situation, and you can hear it in their voice, like because it's uncertainty, right? And they don't know. And I think that's why what we're all doing is kind of creating a solid backup plan or supplemental retirement to where we alleviate, because nothing's worse than, I think I've told you this before. I had a captain who I liked. I worked for him for a year, and towards the end of his career he hit me up and was like, hey, I need to refinance because I didn't realize I can't afford my house without overtime. When you're 54 or 53 years old, that's not a good feeling, but it was stuff that the guys don't think about. So yeah, I mean, I do see the younger guys I just told somebody the other day, they start off, they're so high on the job. It's like the same thing like you said, Tony, like when you're with real estate, right? When you're first on the floor as a fireman, I'm like, dude, it is fire, 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 fire all day long. That's all you think about. And then that slowly wanes a little bit to where it's like, okay, you still love it, but it's not like 110% of your focus. And I think once guys start to get older, have kids, responsibilities, they start to think in the future. And that's the cool part, is I think a lot of those younger guys now, with the availability of all this stuff, a lot of them are accessing this and taking it a little bit more seriously. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
for Mike, I'm curious. We're gonna have a podcast in an hour with Mike. Um,
Yeah, see, there's Joe chiming in.
all right, Joe, come to where I used to work, and I'm sure you can tell me if we sleep all day. Mike, I'm curious too, right? Because he did have a health scare, a serious one too, and I think with everything, perspective changes, and he's pretty close anyway. So I don't know if it's changed. I do know this. He said that he was very glad that a few years ago he had switched the way he ran his business and counted on other people, because had he not, he would have been in a world of hurt when he got out of the hospital. Um, and I think probably he's realizing, hey, the only thing that really matters to him are his wife and kids and his family. Everything else was all secondary. So I don't know. I mean, I think he can look at it as a blessing and maybe like, hey, like, what do I really want to do?
Yeah, great points. Yeah. So, Tony, what about you? Because I know you also have, another business in a sense, right? So you have
Yeah.
business and real estate. So, for you, I mean, it seems like you have a lot of options out there for yourself.
Yeah, I think I honestly look at it kind of twofold. I'm always a kind of middle of the road, kind of looking at both options, and talking to some of those younger guys, trying to get them to understand, like, first, where else would they be able to make the kind of money they're making with the schedule that they're making or have. So I'm kind of like in a tricky situation, because it's like, yes, you can go and try to do something else, or yes, you can retire early. But what's the goal, right? What are your goals on retiring, and why would you retire? And how many of those guys? I always look at, like, with the structure. Obviously, things are starting to change with the way the firemen are eating, the health wise. Like, what would they be doing? Would they be working out? Would they be doing the different things once they retire? And most of the guys that I see that retire, I mean, they just go downhill from a health standpoint. So it's like, is that job keeping them in a healthier position than if they were try to retire early, and now they don't have much going on, and they're sitting in the house starting to watch the TVs and all the different things that come with not being active and having something to get up and kind of look forward to. So talking to some of those younger guys, I am really really pushing, like, being in a better financial situation, because personally I feel probably 70% of our fire department, if the city came in and say, hey guys, we messed up, you won't get 2 to 3 checks, it would be a whirlwind of people will be ready to wire, right? Like, I mean, I've seen where some of our guys have, like, just from a back pay from our last contract, they have messed up on that, and guys are ready to lose their mind. I'm like, you wasn't expecting that money. So for me, it's trying to, again, goes back to that financial literacy and having that option to be able to retire, because I don't think most people are in a position, even some of the older guys, to where they can retire and have enough money to retire.
Right. I think, like, do you guys get, like, we get, obviously we all have contracts, and I'm assuming we're all union, but like for us lately, like when I was on the job, it was like 2 to 3%. Usually COLA is what we got. Maybe every once in a while we got something better. And I kept telling, like, some of my closest friends, hey, take that 2 to 3% that you have never needed prior to the day you got it and do something with it. It's not going to affect your day-to-day living. And you're going to start to save. Do an auto withdrawal and then put it into like a excuse me, a money market account, anything other than spending it. But everybody sees that extra money. They're like, ooh, that's a boat payment. That's a new car
Yeah.
payment. And it's like, dude, you're never getting that money back. It's just you're throwing it on fire. What's a contract? I think we're
Yeah.
right. No, I know we're lucky we have a big union, but yeah, they would always promise well, I shouldn't say that. They would promise big things, whatever. I don't care. I'm retired. They would promise big things and we would get COLA every single year. Okay.
Well, I don't know about for like you, Tony, and stuff. I don't know if your guys are working on possibly like a COVID hazard payout, if that's something being talked about
Mhm.
or discussed in your
Mhm.
guys' department. So supposedly, and we're not sure, it's something being discussed that there's going to be a payout, a lump sum payout, possibly for hazard pay working during COVID period. So that would be interesting too, right? If people, like you're saying, do receive this lump sum check, like what are you going
Yeah.
to do with it, right? Like, are you going to, like you're saying, buy a boat or whatever, or are you going to invest it, or like how are different individuals going to use it? And Tony, to your point, someone in the school community had a great post, and they were talking about it's not about becoming a multi-billionaire or even a
Mhm.
multi-millionaire, but it's if someone was to come in, or if you were to walk into your job the next day and for whatever reason they said, you know what, your position is expendable, and we're going to cut your position, and then you're out of a job, will you be able to survive, or will you be good
Mhm.
for 6 months to a year? And are you going to be able to take care of your family, your kids, your wife, and whatnot? And that's the hardest thing, right? And just being prepared for that. So I think you're saying, it really comes down to financial, literacy, education, and just kind of getting out of that rat race.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I really pride my wife on is, like, we could do without majority. Like, if we had to, we've had a conversations where, I mean, we're so content with where we are. It's like, if we had to go back to penny pension like we were before, we could, no issue, and we would be totally fine. Our kids would be fine, because we've been really encouraging the whole savings, and living on less. I mean, we got some new guys, man. They're coming in, big house, new car, big. I mean, have you seen these payments on some of these trucks these guys are getting?
It's
I mean,
crazy.
$1,000 for a truck payment. Holy crap! Like, it is beyond me to see, like, this. I know this person is making the same as me, and I'm just like, but again, it's how how you were raised, the financial literacy part, and obviously you don't want to count nobody else's money, but when it comes to where they don't get overtime, and they're ready to lose it, because they know that now that money is accounted for, and they're putting that overtime money into their budget, or their second job into their budget. For me, that's when it becomes a, hey, like, we need to sit down and have a conversation, because worst case scenario, like you said, they come in and start to do some cuts, and now you seeing brothers and sisters lose their jobs, and it's like, you know, again, most of our issues that we see with issues at the fire department come from home, and it comes from not being good financially, and now they're stressed out. Things are happening at home, and majority of the time it's because of money. And it's like, where then what are you going to do as far as if you're someone on the fire department who has their things together, and able to talk to those guys about that? I think that's on you. I've been on our officers pretty heavy about like adding that into our, hey, you're helping this guy get to a point to where they're good in the fire department. Like, if financial literacy is not into your talks, like, you're doing a disservice to these new kids, because you have direct contact and being able to encourage these guys, and they're seeing it from the other side of the people who are getting the latest and the greatest of cars and houses and things like that. Why not be on the other side of that and being that person and say, hey, like, I helped this guy get started in deferred comp. Hey, I helped this guy get his first, property, and now, like, seeing the fruits of that labor, because you're knowing that, hey, if something happens, this person will be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, so for you, Tyler, also, I mean, like, if you weren't doing these additional things or had these things lined up, do you think the pension would have been sufficient for you? You know, like, cost of living is going up, and I mean, I know the
Oh no.
pension does increase, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
would you have to be cutting back on your lifestyle, you think?
Oh, for sure. And we already are, just like preemptively, right? Just to like, I don't want to be in a position to Tony said, like, we when we first got married and for the first few years we didn't really have very much, if any, money, and we still had a ton of fun. We just did things differently. Like, we were outside all the time. We lived close to the beach. We were hiking, going to the beach, doing all these things. And then, as that switches, you start spending money. But like, going back to it, like, we could do a ton of stuff and save a ton of money. But yeah, like, real talk, like, if I had not had that, especially, there was 1 year out of the 3 I was off before I got retired where I didn't get paid at all. I think that would have been catastrophic for sure. And it's just one of those things that we had always preached something. I didn't know it was going to happen to me, to do a real life case study, but it worked. And like I said, it was still stressful. I'm not going to lie. It's not like it was like, oh, this is golden, I'm good. It was like, oh man, everybody talks about certain things until it happens. You're like, you are not getting paid for a year. See how you handle it, right?
Mhm.
I feel like I handled it decently, but still, it was still stressful. So yeah, I do think it would have changed, and I think people um, I think I'm in my mid 40s. I'm not sure where you guys are at, but I think people should really understand what retirement looks like way earlier than I would have anticipated. I thought I was pretty savvy financially, but when this started to happen, I had no clue what I was doing for retirement. I didn't know what I was going to receive, how my health insurance was going to work, what happened to my 457. And it's just the fear of the unknown, right? Had I known those numbers right away, then I could make a decision and figure stuff out. So I would say, hey, like, we spend all this time investing in real estate, doing all of this, analysis. What's our ROI? Well, what does your pension look like if you don't retire on time? If you have to retire early, what does your healthcare look
Mhm.
like? What can you do with your retirement after all of these things happen? It's like a lot of things that I would have never in a million years thought about at 42 years old when I first got hurt.
Do you guys,
Yeah.
how do you guys help with like the balance? Because I feel like a lot of guys, they're like like you guys talked about, right? People have families, kids, other obligations, and I always hear like, oh, I'll start investing later. I'll do this when I'm retired, or I'll start putting my money into real estate or something, or start going down that route once I'm retired. I feel like people are always like putting on the back burner. You guys hear that a lot?
Putting what on the back burner? I'm sorry.
As far as getting into
Oh
investing,
yeah, yeah.
whether it's real estate or even stocks or crypto, but as far as besides putting it just in your traditional retirement accounts, which is kind of just like, right, it's out of your paycheck, you don't see it. But as far as actually putting in the effort to try and figure out how to invest, I feel like a lot of guys are just like, I'll deal with it later on, or I'll deal with it once I'm retired.
Yeah, and I think the number one benefit for any type of investing is time, right? And I think that we forget that the longer you're into something, the chances are greater for return. Like, I was looking at Warren Buffett, his wealth, it took forever, ever, and then he just like skyrocketed. And he says, what, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. That's what he always says. You need time.
Mhm.
Same thing for all of our properties. As long as we're like cash flowing or break even in 10 years from now, we're going to look significantly better than we do now. But like you said, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. It's the same thing. Yeah, I think guys think they have forever, and then you realize, oh man, like boom, my career's over and I didn't do anything. So yeah, I think the lack of urgency is definitely there because life gets in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Not analysis and paralysis is kind of what I see. That's why I feel like I'm pretty passionate about talking to them new guys early on because lifestyle creep is real. The more money you make, the more money you spend. 100%. I've seen it time and time again, especially with our guys, just because, I feel like a lot of firemen are kind of easily influenced when it comes to, guys are getting the latest and the greatest. I've seen it where, like, literally, this person had no intentions on getting a new truck, but because two of the other guys got trucks and they've seen the trucks and they see them watching it, they go get the truck. So it's, that lifestyle creep is real. So trying to get them guys to understand, like, again, you can't get that time back. So being able to get in early and just let that ride, because, like, for instance, a lot of our guys are coming in, they're on drill school pay. I think they're making like 47,000, 37 to 47,000. And then it goes up pretty significantly, like from like 37 to like 52, from 52 to 64. Like, so it's just these within a 3 year span, it's a huge pay increase. So it's like, hey, you spent 6 months on drill school pay, which was that 47,000, 47,000. Like, if you can literally sustain that, right? Obviously, some things start to go up, but like for that instant where we're getting to where, year 3, year 4, year 5, now these guys are making 86,000, going from 46. Like, that is a huge pay increase. But again, once your lifestyle starts to creep with that, then you start to, hey, now I got to get a part-time job. Now I got to get, I've got to get overtime, and it's, I tell them guys, it's a good feeling to work, to know that, hey, this is going towards a vacation, and I don't necessarily need this money versus I'm working to pay a bill. Like, it just gives you a different peace of mind when you're in that position. And I was that person. I mean, we were working, 3 part-time jobs before I got the full-time job. But one thing I can say, like, between, just me and my wife right now, like, we're doing our tax stuff. Like, my wife has 4 different, W-2 jobs, like, where she's getting, like, she's a school teacher, but she works at 3 different online jobs also. So we've got that kind of that hustler kind of mentality. But now it's to the point to where I'm giving in a little bit more, where I'm spending a little bit more, because I was a hoarder for so long. And it's like I was kind of on that outer, where I was the opposite of it, right? I was like hoarding, 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 and it wasn't a healthy hoard. It was like, hey, I'm hoarding because I don't know. I was in that mindset of when I was younger, I don't know when my next meal or when my next thing is going to come. So I'm in this weird position where I'm just hoarding all this money. It's like, okay, well, I've got to be able to have a balance. And that's where I feel like my wife has kind of been that balance for me. Like, hey, we're getting to that position where because I can work every day. Like, I can literally work every day and be perfectly fine. I'll pick up a gazillion amount of overtime shifts. So now I'm leaning on her to tell me, like, hey, you're doing too much. Hey, don't work for a while. Okay, cool. Because I would work every day. That's just me. So it's like trying to find that balance. That's probably been the hardest thing dealing with real estate, is how to balance me working as much as I normally would if I had the opportunity.
Making me feel lazy and shit now. I mean, how much you
No.
want to work, but I think, but I think that's a great point. Like you're saying, like even like hoarding, like in a way where, like you said, maybe you didn't have a lot of money when you were younger. And I think
Mhm.
that's sometimes what happens, right? People, once they start making money, they're always afraid of not having it, and but they're maybe financial literacy or education wise is to save it or to hold on to it. instead of kind of, like you're saying, making it grow in a sense, right? So that's another thing I think is super important in trying to help people realize that it's about the velocity of money and trying to make it grow and making it build, right?
Yeah, that was probably my biggest fear, like growing up and kind of being in a position that I was in. It's like getting older and not having enough, right? Like so I was in this period of before I really got into learning about investing. I was, to see my bank account grow, right? Like so I was like, oh, I gotta, see this bank account grow. But now understanding, hey, I've got this, my savings account, but now everything else has got to be invested. And that was probably the hardest thing for me early on was the investing part, not having that money to see, but now that I'm investing and seeing those accounts grow, I'm realizing how much time I again can't get back. I think that's why I preach investing early so much because obviously you guys know there's a difference between savings and investments. Like it's a huge difference, and you can't get them years back if you're not investing early.
Yeah, so there was two great speakers. I mean, there was a bunch of great speakers at the ORAD event, but two that really connected with a lot of people was, I don't know if you guys know Tom Brickman, the frugal gay on social media, and there was also Sarah Garrett. But like Tom Brickman, he basically, I don't, I always forget the exact number, but he'll be on Wednesday with me. But I don't think he made more than maybe 70,000 a year. He basically worked at the Gap. He worked at the movie theater. He's selling like lingerie and bras on eBay. And then he invests in Toledo actually. So he has I think like 24 units in Toledo, and he lives in Texas now or Dallas. So he invests in Dallas also. But yeah, he was never a high income earner, but he was very frugal, and he, like you said, he worked, he hustled. He basically you know, like I said, didn't make more than 70,000 a year. And then Sarah Garrett, to your point, she said she was poor. She was always worried about not having money. So for her, her and the husband are in the military, but they basically leveraged their VA loans to wherever they got stationed. So they were buying properties with the VA loan. But now she's transitioning because now she's starting to realize how she can leverage these properties. But initially, she was just trying to pay down all the debt because she was always afraid
Mm.
of losing things. So now she's getting into that next phase of investing where now she has all these assets, but now she can move them around or use the equity to grow her portfolio. So yeah, two great stories. And like we talk about, it's about sometimes people are afraid of losing things. But you just got to get started too, though, right? I mean, you have to
Yeah.
kind of take that risk. And it's funny because like us being first responders, you think that most of us know the risk of being a first responder, right? So there's risk and reward, but there's a lot of guys that don't want to invest because they feel it's risky, right? And they're not looking at the
Mhm.
reward side of it, right?
Yeah,
I think
it's
too.
funny.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tyler. No, go ahead, Tyler.
I would say I think guys look at it like, oh, it's going to be risky, but is it risky to try something like this, or risky to wait until you're 54 or 55 and hope that you have enough money in your pension to fund your lifestyle? That's to me the scariest thing. Would and I said this before, and now it's already happened, so it's not the same. But the scariest thing for me would have been to be at 55 and realize I don't have enough money. I'm 55. I'm supposed to be retired. And then now, again, I don't have that safety net of overtime anymore to invest. That would be the scariest thing. Because at 55, we're most naturally, we could still be motivated. But I think all of us would agree in our 20s and early 30s, I'm like, you're ready to rock and roll. Like, you just,
Mhm.
it's natural. Like, that's when we're hitting it hard. And even in my, like, right now, I feel like I'm slowing down just a tiny bit, but there's no way I'm the same that I was when I was 21, 22, trying to get after it. It's just, it's
Mhm.
not the way it works. And for me, yeah, 55 would be scary if I didn't have a plan to make more money.
Yeah. Did you look at that Instagram thing I sent you? The one of like waking
Oh,
up
yeah,
at,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like, yeah, nowadays I gotta stretch as soon as I wake up. It's like painful just stepping out of bed, man.
It's like the
Things are
Tin Man.
yeah. Another thing too, like right, maybe you plan your retirement or your financial situation, And then, I see a lot of guys getting divorced or separated, right? Towards the end of their career or even when they're retired. And now it just puts a whole wrench in your whole plans. And now are you going to go back to
Mhm.
work or what are you going to do, right? So it's just giving yourself options. I think that's the biggest thing, right? And it's easier to take the risk earlier, right? Well, like you guys talked about having that W-2 or being able to work overtime and things like that. So even if you do make a little bit mistakes, at least you can work more shifts, work overtime or whatnot, and maybe cover some of that mistakes you make early in your journey. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, I don't know. You guys got anything else you guys want to discuss? I mean,
Yeah,
uh,
I was talking. I know, like in the real estate world, your boy Dave Ramsey gets hit on pretty hard. But there was a phase in our life where Dave Ramsey was the one that got us to the point to where we were able to invest. Like we went through the whole Financial Peace University, and we were. I mean, my credit score was 490 at one point. You know what I mean? So he was able to get us to a point to where we were able to invest. Obviously, we look back now like, man, we paid off all these things that we probably shouldn't have, but I don't think we would have been in a position to invest if we wasn't able to learn how to deal with money, how to pay off things, how to because I feel like he's attracted and he's that person that never has had financial literacy, doesn't know anything about financial literacy, and need a plan. But at some point you have to graduate from his train of thought if you really want to get into investing. But I think he has he has a point, right? He has a phase in majority of American lives, and he can get you to a point to where you can get to the point of investing. But obviously, you have to graduate from that train of thought. But without him, we definitely wouldn't have been in a position to get to where we are now.
did you say 490?
490,
Holy, like, is that possible?
490.
Wow.
It was bad. I,
Yeah.
I mean, I've got my first credit card in high school. They let me get credit cards at my high school. Like they literally had a table at lunch and let us get credit cards. Like like I'm talking criminal, man. Like that was criminal. I had no idea about paying it back. I had no idea about minimum payment. I had no idea about any of that. I mean, I was able to get a Dillard's card at night. Like it was criminal. Some of the things they let us do. And obviously, I paid for it. I paid for it. All the different interest that I paid that I had to pay was ridiculous. But again, you live and you learn, and you try to now pass that knowledge down. I'm sure Tyler sees some crazy things when it comes to people credit and things like that. But it's criminal some of the things that they're letting these companies get away with when it comes to um, credit scores and giving people this credit without having the knowledge to deal with it.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely. I think that's the like talking about Dave Ramsey, real quick. Yeah, I think he has like what maybe the first four or five steps is super helpful, but then from
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
like you're saying, maybe if you want to grow things a lot quicker, you kind of have to learn how to invest and not just follow the steps that he's doing. But definitely the first, I think 4 or 5 steps are super helpful getting your money right. But like credit score, I think someone posted on Facebook, right? A lot of people, I think it's same thing, right? They don't understand credit score. So they're always trying to get the 800 credit score or 850 or the maximum. And that doesn't really, I think a lot of times tell you how good you are with money. It just basically tells you that, you're paying things on time, you don't have any debt, but that doesn't really say that because to me, I think credit is meant to be used in a responsible way. So that's why
hmm
it ebbs and flows. And sometimes it's going to dip because you're using it to invest or you're using it to leverage it, but then it's going to go back up when you pay it. So I think that's the misconception out there is sometimes people are always trying to keep it at this pristine level where it's really, you're going to use it and maybe it's going to drop a little while, but it's really just understanding what makes up your credit score because it does help having a higher credit score. Like Tyler, I'm sure you can talk about how it helps with rates and things like that. But as far as I think it's meant to be used. Would you agree?
For sure. And yeah, I mean, for rates, it makes a huge difference, right? So, like, to your point, there's a certain point where it doesn't really matter. I mean, above 760, you're qualifying for the best products that you can get. But then like a real big number is like, let's say 680, right? Below 680, you're going to take a huge hit when you're going to apply for certain loans. You may not qualify for conventional anymore. You may have to do FHA. So yeah, it's huge. And I think people don't realize that. And the funny thing that I always get is people will call me, what's your rate? Well, what's your credit score? What's your income? And when they see, oh, well, you advertised 5%. Well, yeah, it says in there it's for above 720 FICO, and your FICO is 580. So now your score is 6.5, and it can be a huge difference. And I think some people are so concerned about getting to 800. I mean, every loan product I've ever seen, that doesn't really matter. 800 is like, that's a cocktail party, stat, right? Oh, hey, I have an 800. Cool. Doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah.
760, 740 is just fine. But yeah, I think it's gamified, right? Like but I agree with you. None of this stuff is ever taught to you. Like, I got a credit card in college. I had no clue. I had $100,000 in student loans that I had to pay for. No idea. I could not have even fathomed what it was going to take to pay $100,000 off. I didn't. I had no clue. And to your guys' point, I used the Dave Ramsey method until I got out of all that, including I was sitting at the fire station. I had saved up enough money to pay off the remainder of my student loans. At the kitchen table, I hit send. And I was grateful, but so angry at the same time, because I was like, man, I could have done so much with that money. And granted, I mean, college is a good experience. And
I see Aaron tuning in from Instagram. I don't know.
I shouldn't have told him I was on here.
He says Tyler has the voice of an angel.
Did you touch my drum set?
Hey, how many guys do you think actually have used Dave Ramsey that will not admit that they actually use it because it's taboo, right? Like, it's taboo
right?
to say, like, I use Dave Ramsey, which most of the time it got them in a position to be where they are. And I just found that very fascinating that majority of people have probably used at least some of his philosophies at some point to get to where they are. And it's just like they will not admit that.
I'm sure Mark knows that if you want to get attention on social media, just mention Dave Ramsey in any kind of post. I'm sure you guys know too. Dude, those are my highest views, like 50,000 views on Instagram. For me is a big number. It's because I mentioned Dave Ramsey, and it's such a hot topic. And I agree. I think he is a great starting point. It's like undergrad, let's say. He's undergrad. What we're doing is kind of graduate school. And I think it's huge.
Very well.
Yeah, I like to use it because it does get people riled up, but I agree with you. I think there's a lot of guys that use it. My captain, I didn't know. My captain's a little overboard. I think he was doing Dave Ramsey couponing. He had like this whole pantry of all. I'm like, dude, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be clipping coupons and like saving 500 bottles of laundry detergent. Like, that's just not me. But I agree with you. I think
that was me. That was me big time. I literally downstairs, I've still got like that was me. 100%. Like, I've got addictive personality, so when I go in on something, I'm like all in. So I was all in on. I mean, the wallet with the money. Like, we went all in on Dave Ramsey. Went all in on coupon, and now I'm kind of all in on the travel hacking. So again, that's a kind of a better thing. We're going somewhere in a couple of weeks. We're going to the Bahamas, all on point. So it's been the point things has been again. I think it's kind of like the couponing on steroids, right? Because again, I'm not penny pinching now, but I am using. So now I'm starting to get into like the credit card stacking, where I'm using the 0% for some of my actual renovation projects.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going in on some of kind of more, again, like you said, graduate steps of doing things, to where now I'm learning these different steps to where, getting access to capital. Obviously, that's the name of the game, is having access to capital. So I'm learning all these different things, and I'm kind of now going all in on those, credit card stacking, credit card reward points, and things like that. So
nice.
Yeah, all great points. I think it's kind of different steps, right? Like, we're talking about Dave Ramsey is great steps for the beginning, but then you always want to kind of grow or accelerate. And even like the credit card, the stacking, it's great to use and figure out how to do it. But I think at the end of the day, my vision is getting to a point where I don't need to do travel hacking, or I don't need to cut coupons in a sense, right? It's more just generating enough income to where if I want to travel, I don't have to worry about flying on certain dates or using this credit card for these points, right? So I think at the end of the day, it's trying to get to a certain point, but along the way, you're going to use these steps to help you get to that end goal. And then hopefully at the end goal, like you said, it says, hey, if I want to travel today or this weekend, shit, I'm just gonna get a flight and head out or whatever, right? And not worry about if this time blacked out or if I gotta use these points and so yeah. Hey Kyle, what's up? Blue collar landlord. Yeah, Aaron doesn't look like Aaron might still be here, but yeah, but he is the most requested guest to be back on. So I keep trying to get him back on, but I think he's too busy fighting about Zelensky and Trump right now on social media.
Oh, I'm sure. He'll be fired.
Now,
I'm sure
I
he'll
do
be
want
fired
to
up.
ask you guys. I do want to ask you guys how are you guys navigating kind of that landscape? Obviously, at the firehouse, but like just with social media, how are you guys kind of navigating that aspect of where we are from a firefighting standpoint? Because I think we're struggling right now. I believe because just my opinion that if voting wise, right, if you're voting strictly from a union standpoint, it's hard to say that the Republicans have our back, so to say. Whether we can agree to disagree on certain things, it's just hard. So now you've got this where our union now, like we've got this. It was called SB5 at one point, where they're trying to basically take some of our voting rights. They just brought it back up. SB5 was like 4 years ago. They just brought back up SB1, which is a big deal where they're trying to basically almost kind of that right to work state. So now we've got this kind of big divide to where we've got our union guys who are kind of our hardcore union guys who are kind of that hardcore Republican are now like very very quiet because now we've got this Republican Party who's now trying to basically take away our rights. So it's kind of this weird kind of navigating thing right now. Just kind of curious how you guys are navigating that aspect when it comes to fire department and dealing with politics.
I think we all know, right? Kitchen table is where a lot of that stuff is hashed out. But I do think too, like more so in the last 10 years, let's say, like it's just become such a more volatile topic. Like I wish we could just hash it out and talk about it on both sides. I think two-party systems are great, and I think if you don't have it, either way, it's going to be a huge problem, right? I mean, history has told us if you don't have something checks and balances, it's going to go one way or the other. But even with some of my closest friends outside of the apartment, it's a topic we can no longer discuss without everybody getting super heated. So I try to, I mean, if somebody wants to have civil conversation, I'm always down to listen to somebody's point of view because I'm genuine. I'm always curious why they think what they think, not what they think.
That's
why.
me. That's me.
Where is that coming from? And I'll respect your opinion if you respect mine, because I am curious with a lot of stuff. Like I love talking about stuff that makes me think, well, why does that person think that? Not what do you think? It's why do they think that? And I think it's huge. But on social media, the guy that teaches us as far as for mortgage specifically said, dude, just leave it alone. We're not in a point where we can even discuss it anymore, and it's not going to benefit you. It's like do that in private or whatever. And then there's some people like Aaron. I love Aaron. He does not give what. That's a good quality to have, man. It really is. I mean, it definitely is. And like, but again, I mean, if I'm using Instagram for me, it's 98% business and then 2% stupid story posts, then I have to respect that and be like, well, what am I trying to do as a business owner? I'm trying to provide mortgages to first responders. They don't care about my political views. They don't want to hear what I have to say. Right?
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about, though. I do love talking about it.
Well, to your point, you exactly kind of so there's a guy at my firehouse who's totally, like you said, I want to know more why he feels a certain way about things, but he'll send me. So when I was in Vegas, he probably sent me like 40 articles about, very left leaning stuff. And every time I try to ask him why or what's his thoughts on or why does he feel that way, all I get is like the talking point from the article, right, or the headline, right? So it's like, why are you gonna send these if you don't even want to discuss? Because I like you said, I really want to know.
It's fun.
Yeah, like I really want to know why he feels that way, but
Yeah.
he can't really give me a reason. All he does is say what the headline is basically, and I'm like, I give up. I don't want to talk to you already. But
dude.
yeah, to your point though, I think it's really like you're saying, right? Both sides. I think it's understanding that both parties are corrupt. I'll basically say it. Both sides are corrupt. And I think that's why it's basically taking your future in your own hands, whether the party's going to do this or that, whatever they say, but it's you taking being accountable for your decisions, right? So, and I think that's why all of us are either investing in real estate or whether you want to do
Mhm.
stocks, but you're just planning your own future so that you don't need to rely, like we said, like if someone was to walk in tomorrow and said, hey, we're cutting your guy's pension or whatnot, or you're not getting paid for 1 year or something, like you said, right? you know, I want to put myself in a position where that's not going to affect me, right? It's not going to, um, make me forced to do anything that I don't want to do, I guess, in a sense.
Do we agree, or do you guys agree that you think that the whole like left versus right now is keeping us so busy by design? And like to your point, Mark, like if we all focus on creating our own future while understanding the political environment, it's just a set of rules to play in, right? Like we can agree the last 4 years are going to most likely be different than these current 4 years, and we're implementing new rule systems, and we have to see like, okay, what are the new rules? How do we abide by them? But I think if we wake up every day so worried about what is happening in that aspect, like we're gonna miss the boat, like we just talked about. We're gonna spend all this time sitting on a rocking chair, and what do they say? It's fun to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. Like that's how
Mhm.
I think more recently, I don't really watch TV anymore. I definitely don't watch the news because it's like, ugh, it's just so negative. I can't deal with it. And I'm like, okay, what are the new rules? How do I deal with it? I know at our department, we're always told to vote our paycheck. Like that's our whole thing. Vote your paycheck. In California, I do 100% agree that has not worked out very well for us. If you look at our state, we're just horribly mismanaged. We collect more taxes, I think, than any other state, and our infrastructure is beat up. There's all of these things. So like I think guys are starting to question like why are we being told something where it's not benefiting us and our families anymore? And then the union gets upset. But it's like, well, no, this is a real issue. Like guys
Mhm.
no longer blindly trust that if what they're being told to do is not benefiting like they're being told it will. So that's something that I have noticed is guys are starting to become more outspoken, and like they are that we've always been told since day one when I walked in, you work for a union department, you will vote your paycheck. That's what you told,
Mhm.
and I don't think it's working as intended. So that's, I guess that's the only thing I would say like that's a little bit more outspoken is we want to make sure we protect our jobs, but you also have to make sure your family's taken care of too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to another point too, I think that's also why you want to try to be, financially independent, I guess, because you can voice your opinion, I guess. Maybe there's something you don't agree with, right? And you being financially independent on your own, then now you can, if there's something you don't agree with or you don't like, or maybe puts you in danger or harm's way, you can voice your opinion, and maybe it is going against your paycheck, like you're saying, but you're able to speak your mind. Um, but Joe V says, so I shouldn't ask you all about Trump versus Zelensky. Yeah. Uh,
Just being completely honest, like I've had to really kind of take myself out of this position of like when I growing up young, inner city, black male, I was told to I need to vote this way specifically
Okay.
because I've got, these are the talking points that I was always told, like, the Republicans, they're harmful. Like there was times where I was listening to both sides argue about who was more racist to black people. Like literally,
Okay.
I would hear both sides talk about how like no, they were more racist towards you. They were more racist towards you. And what I started to realize is the more money that I started to make, the more I realized that I can have a future if I take it into my own hands. Because at the end of the day, the more money I make, the more decisions that I'm able to then kind of take myself out of. Now that I'm starting to deal with the shared living, I'm starting to see how messed up the system is and how encouraging it is to keep you in that particular mindset. So I'm in a weird place right now when it comes to politics because I was always taught, this one particular way. But now I'm starting to see where now with the firehouse, obviously, you've got guys who are one way or another. And I'm now to the point where I want to know why people feel the way they feel versus like you're feeling that way. Tell me why. Like I'm at
Yep.
that point now. And it's been a cool because now like my head is so clear when it comes to politics because at the end of the day, I'm like, tax code. Like I just want to know the tax code because the tax code
That's
does
it.
not have it's mind
100%.
blowing. The more money you start to make and realize like the tax code is what it is. Like if you do X, Y, and Z, they tell you what you can and can't do. They're going to tell you all these different things, and it's like if you just make more money. Like I hate to be like this is where I struggle with even my wife. Like I struggle with this concept of like I should feel this way because I'm black or I'm a full time firefighter. I've been struggling with this for a little while now because I'm looking at both ends don't I feel does not have our interests right. Like I'm in
100%.
this mindset of like I just got to get to a point where I can make more money to then help people to get them out of the situation because at the end of the day, again, I hate to keep going back to financial literacy, but I don't care about any like if you give someone say the $5,000 that everyone is starting to talk about, right? I give you $5,000. It's just going to end back up in the hands of the companies because if you're a consumer, you're going to spend that versus someone who's going to save that. Like all these different things, I'm starting to now discover on my own, and it's hard to not be outspoken about it when you're in these conversations. Where I'm staying out, I've been staying out of the firehouse talk for a little while just because again it's more of a shouting match and kind of a talking points versus like, hey, this is why I feel like this. It's like more talking points. So I've stayed out of a lot of the firehouse conversations just because it's not productive. And again, I feel a certain way as far as like, you start to make more, you can, have more influence on if it's something that you want to change, like you have to have the money to be able to change them things. Like that's just my opinion. And, it is what it is. And we obviously we've got to be able to talk about those things because I think the climax is definitely starting to get a little bit more heated when it comes to issues. And again, because I'm not following the news as much, I'm not seeing as much of it. So I'm getting my news when I go to the firehouse because again, talking points are huge. So it's been wild these last couple weeks, but I'm encouraged that things will start to pan out soon.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And these are the conversations I love. This is the stuff I love because it's like, okay, like now it's like real, like, and like you said, growing up one way, starting to do things and then it changes. Me too. It's like I was raised to believe certain things. And then now ever since I was in my early 20s, questioning things. And then like now I think we're finding like what are our beliefs, not just what people are telling us to believe or we've always been told to believe. And yeah, I think like I don't think either side is looking out for us. I don't think they really totally care, right? From what it sounds like, I would say everybody has had their hand in the pot, and that's what they're worried about is taking as much money out of the monetary system. And then like little stuff, like you said, $5,000. Everybody's like, oh, cool, we're gonna get $5,000, right? Well, now that we know and we've been looking at stuff, it's they want that money back in the economy so it can go back to everybody and hopefully a provide some sort of economic stimulus, but a line a lot of the pockets of the biggest corporations in the country. So when you think about it, it's like, man, we're just going to give something away that's going to go right back to the same people. So I agree with you. I think the firehouse sometimes gets too heated, and I just like especially with this stuff. And I wish we could just kind of move past talking points and be like, well, why do you believe this? Not just what you read on, let's say, Fox or CNN or OAN, whatever everybody's listening. Like, why do you believe what you believe? Right. And that's why I don't know. I used to love sitting in the station, like in the blue, we have blue chairs and just like chopping it up. And like I think the best part about it for me was I get people from different walks of life, different experiences. They grew up in different states, different cities, and under like that's the beautiful part of it. It's like they grew up somewhere differently than I did, and that shaped a lot of their beliefs. And then like, okay, at the end of the day, can we agree that each person believes something because of a valid reason and respect that and move on? And that's what I love. I don't think guys get too crazy at work. Every once in a while, somebody's just extremely irrational and they go fly off the handle. And I think everybody knows those guys, and you just kind of like whatever. It's like whatever, dude. Whatever if we were talking about is water blue, you would argue it just to start a fight.
Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what I told the guy. I said, if we can at least agree like the sky's blue, then we can move on from there. But if you can't even agree on that, then we can't go anywhere from there. But on Instagram, Fire on Fire Investing is enjoined, and so has Sisterland Investors. So if you're still there on Instagram, I put Tony's Instagram page and Tyler's Instagram and the First Responder Financial Freedom YouTube channel. So go check it out. Is Joe talking shit again? If you fireman actually were. Yeah.
I've seen fire or police officers sleep in our recliners. I will say that. I will say that. We came back from some calls. I'm like, oh, our recliners are warm. It was like Goldilocks.
I think the biggest thing is, once you start investing or, trying to head down that financial literacy pathway a little bit, you do see maybe politics a little bit differently, or you start seeing a little, what you've been told all these years. But I think once you start investing or want to take your future in your own hands, you start realizing like all I really want is just stay out of my way in a sense, and like you're saying, let's have reasonable tax codes or but yeah, you just see things differently, right? I think that's the biggest thing. And if you're not investing, you're not doing those things, it's easy to lean you one way or kind of give you a certain message, right? But Dennis is here. I don't know if you're still here, Dennis. I don't know if you guys ever heard anything like this, but he says his insurance is getting canceled at the end of the month. It said it turns out they don't insure houses with asbestos siding, so he's looking for quotes right now. Have you guys dealt with that by any chance? No.
No.
Oh yeah, Fire on Fire Investing is still here, so he's hopefully they check out your guys' Instagram pages and Tyler, your guys' YouTube channel, which you guys are getting back at it, right? You said.
Yeah, we're gonna hop on in about 5 minutes to do another podcast, and then but yeah, we're anybody on here, first responder that wants to hop on and talk. I mean, come back on and talk. We're really trying to re-up it and focus and kind of challenge. Mark's schedule is much more impressive than ours, but just once a week and give guys valuable information. We're going to change the format. We're going to do some shorter episodes, and we're going to do some like real life. Instead of just having first responders, we'll have somebody come on to specifically talk about how to start an LLC in 30 minutes or less, and then how to do tax planning for end of year 30 minutes or less, just to shorten them up and then provide like real life examples and try to help everybody out as much as possible, because that is our goal, to make all of us financially independent. So if anything happens, or if we have to retire early, or even after retirement, we're in a much better position than we are now.
All right, man. Well, would Aaron gonna be there? Is he gonna be? He
is gonna be there. He's hard. He's like, it's like herding the cat with him. He always is very, very busy. So we're trying to do it. And then Mike will be on there.
Cool.
And Mike's off for a few weeks, so he'll probably be part of the Bearded Brotherhood when you guys see him on the. But yeah, I'll actually ask him some questions that we talked about today. But yeah, it's we're looking forward to getting back and doing it regularly.
Cool.
It's on.
Yeah. Well, this was a fun one, guys. So go
enjoy
your recording.
Okay, I'm gonna send you a link, and then let's do it. It'll be good to catch up and then talk about, like I said, I've been following you on Instagram since the day we did our interview, so it'll be cool. I have some questions, and we'll go over them.
Yes, sir.
Before we wrap up, Fire on Fire Investing on Instagram said we are doing the same thing here in Colorado. Thanks for providing this for our community. So yeah, go reach out to you guys on Instagram and go check them out. All right, fellas, and we'll catch up.
Thank you guys.